How are you? This is Freddie Salem of the Outlaws, and you're listening to the business side of music.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Can we get serious now?
One thing that did happen during the 60s was some music of an unusual or experimental nature did get recorded or did get released. Now look at who the executives were in those companies at those times. Not hip young guys. These were cigar-chomping old guys who looked at the product that came and said, I don't know. Who knows what it is? Record it, stick it out. If it sells, all right. We were better off with those guys than we are now with the supposedly hip young executives who are making the decisions of what people should see and hear in the marketplace.
Success in the music business begins with a dream, a vision. This podcast will give you, the listener, the insight and tools to turn that vision into a reality. Meet the industry professionals who work day by day behind the scenes, helping to make those dreams come true. Welcome to the business side of music.
In the studio today, sitting across the podcast table, just recently met this gentleman off the street, for lack of anything else.
A few seconds ago.
Yeah. I said, hey, you want to be at a podcast show? Sure. Are you in the music business? Sure. Okay, well, you can come on.
That was it.
Marc-Alan Barnette is joining us, also known as Thunder Throat.
There you go.
There you go. Got the radio voice. I like this guy because he's always been a square peg in
a round hole. Or
an octagonal hole, as you'll say.
No, I couldn't phrase that right. I couldn't spell that.
Yeah, well, I'm looking at your press release, so... His blue-eyed soul voice has drawn comparisons to Ray Charles and Delbert McClinton, and his seemingly endless collections of songs pretty much sum it up everything covering country, blues, rock, bluegrass, soul, and everyday comedy.
There you go.
I love that. It's nice to finally have someone on the show that's funny besides me. His over 40-year career in the music business has spanned the rock era of the 70s and 80s, moving to country, not moving into the country, but just moving to country.
Yeah.
In the late 80s, scoring songs recorded by the likes of Grammy winner Shelby Lynne, country superstars David Ball and John Barry, who we've had on the show, and Warner Brothers artist Frankie Ballard. Boy, there's a name I haven't heard in a while.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah.
He's a great guy, though. Great player.
Mark, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, man. I really enjoy being here.
We got to give a big shout out to Doug Robertson,
Absolutely.
who set this all up. I had coffee with Doug this morning, and he said he was going to warn you about me, but obviously that didn't happen.
He didn't.
Yeah, you showed up.
I take everything Doug says kind of in quotations there. He's a great, great guy, and he just, I've known him for many, many years, but he's been here for a few years, and I haven't seen him very much.
Well, witness protection.
That's true.
Yeah, we have been talking about that a lot, so yeah. How did you get started in this crazy thing we call the music business?
Good Lord. I was born many years ago back in Alabama. I started in high school.
Were you an Alabama boy?
Yeah, I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. And I grew up, I get a phone call from a friend of mine. I'm 14 years old, and he said, we're putting a band together. Oh, God, famous last words. We need someone to sing. And I'd never even thought about singing, We used to be in junior high school. We would sit around a little. Do you remember Auto Shop? Did you ever take Auto Shop?
Absolutely.
Where you would dismantle a car?
Well, now, I remember Auto Shop. They wouldn't have let me in there because of the tools.
We dismantled a car in the 8th grade, and we had the seat sitting there. And we were, people were trying to learn to weld and all this stuff. Now I'm terrible. Same thing. Good Lord, I'm awful around it. But we sat around the seat and we started doo-wopping with some friends. It's kind of the things you do as kids. Later on, one of the guys would call me and say, hey, let's put this band together. And I thought, I've never sung. I'm like 14 years old. I go on stage to Tarrant High School. Tarrant, Alabama is where I'm from. This is before I'm in the high school. And I went on stage and I started out singing I Believe in Music by Mac Davis. And the women went crazy. And I said, this is what I'm doing. So from 14, that's what I did. I had a band out of high school called Bittersweet. That morphed into a band called 24 Karat, which is kind of in the 80s Loverboy Journey.
Right.
Singer that all the dogs howl because his voice is too high. Yeah, that was me. And we had a really good band. In 1984, we won a Battle of the Bands, the Miller High Life Rock to Riches National Talent Search, kind of a Star Searcher or American Idol of its day, out of about 30,000 bands. And then we did what all bands do. You know what rock bands do, don't you?
What's that?
They break up.
Oh, heavens, yes. At least once, if not twice.
When do they break up? The day after the band picture is taken.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
But I did that.
Or the record deal is signed, if you get that far.
It.
Yeah.
And both of them happened to us.
Oh, we got a record deal? No.
Yeah, we got an MCA record deal. It took us about 8 years to get out. It would have taken us 8 years, but we kind of opted out. It was a contest thing. But I met a guy in Birmingham as rock music started changing, and it went darker. It went into the Seattle grunge. It went into just teenage angst. Everything was angsty. And I'd come from that Loverboy Journey, big soaring vocal thing. Well, that was gone now. And I started noticing things. There's a band called Exile. Do you remember them?
Oh, very much
I saw
so.
them play live, and I'm going, this is country? Oh, this is great. And I met a guy named Ron Muir, and he taught me about Nashville. He had lived in Nashville. He had some hits back in the 70s. He was living in Birmingham, and I basically paid him as a coach, sit down and show me how to write these things. And he did. And he showed me how lyrics, you've been in the rock business. You know that rock music is usually is sonically driven, with the grooves and everything. Country music is more lyrically written.
Right.
And so he helped me break that down and showed me how to do it and brought me to Nashville, auditioned for the Bluebird. I recorded 10 songs, and suddenly everything just started clicking. And I moved to Nashville. I got the connection for the Shelby Lynne cut first night in town.
You're kidding.
No.
That's unheard of.
In front, talk about being prepared. I had a tape. You remember those? You remember those things?
I still have some.
I had a tape, but cassette tape, but I had no phone number because I'm still in Birmingham when I recorded it. I came up here and recorded it, and I had no phone number, so I just had my name on it. I had the same name as a banjo player in Nashville.
Ah.
First night in town, I'm playing a place called Douglas Corner. I think you remember.
I remember Douglas Corner quite well.
Get there at 6 o'clock. First one to be there, last one to play. 1:45 in the morning. Wow. 3 people left in the bar. And a guy comes up to me, he says, man, I like your funny songs. This is the funny song. The door opener. I had a thing called Grand Opening, which was a song I'd written with Ron, and it was about a guy's zipper being open. Do you know your fly is standing open? And it just got a really cool response. So he says, I'm not in the music business, but I like your funny stuff. So give him a tape. 6 months later, I see him out, and he says, man, they're trying to find you over at Tree Publishing. And he was not in the music business, but his roommate was. His roommate was working down in the tape room. And do you remember the old tape room when writers would submit all these tapes to pitch,
Yeah.
Well, there was a couple of guys down in the basement that were using demagnetizers or erasing everything because they couldn't accept unsolicited material.
Right.
And they would give those tapes to the writers coming up to re-record over. And this guy, Greg Dorschel, was working with another guy named Alan Jackson, and they were demagnetizing all these tapes. My tape worked its way up to the vice president's office because this guy, Greg Dorschel, was trying to be a song plugger. And he gets it up there, and they're playing it on the stereo. Now, this is a Nashville story. They're playing it on the stereo, and a guy walking down the hall sticks his head in the office and says, who is that? And they said, we don't know. We think it's this banjo player. But it was my song. It took them a while to find me because that guy was Billy Sherrill, who had discovered Tammy Wynette and George Jones.
But how did they find you?
They found from that writer's night where I was the last guy to play, the guy that came up, I'm not in the music business, you got a tape? I gave him a tape. His roommate heard the tape. He played it for his roommate. His roommate was in Tree. That's how strange this business is. A person knows somebody who sees somebody, but it teaches you to be prepared.
Oh, it's very incestuous in this business.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but in a good way.
Yeah. Billy Sherrill had discovered George Jones and Tammy Wynette. He was a producer over at CBS Records. He was the music director on a television movie called Another Pair of Aces, which was Willie Nelson, Chris Christopherson. And he was looking for a song that had a very slow intro that kicked into a two-step. Because Shelby Lynne, his other discovery, would be singing that song in this bar. And Willie and Chris get up with an Actress Seal Award and two-step to this song. I wrote the song with Ron Muir and my dad, the biggest Willie Nelson fan in history, and he got to see Willie two-step to his song. And so it's just those kind of accidental things, but you got to be prepared for them. We had a great recording on the song. The song was written right down the pipe that they were looking for. It was a fun song. It had some humor in it. It had some attitude in it. Shelby ate it up, man. She killed on it. And it just kind of one thing took flight. And that's what started my career, basically first night in town.
Just being in the right place at the right time. Even
with
though
the right
you didn't,
product.
Yeah, and you didn't even know it.
Nope. Had no idea.
You know, songwriting has changed so much over the years, not only how we write songs, but how we present them, how we pitch them.
Yeah.
We've got a whole list of things I want to go down,
Sure.
so this may be a 4.5-hour podcast episode before we're done. Yeah, but I might not be.
Okay.
But I want to talk about the number one thing, songwriting do's and don'ts.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about the common misconceptions, let's go down that path for a minute.
Okay, everybody thinks there's enormous amounts of money. They think even if they get on social media now and streams, you know, we got these streams. I got 100, 200 million streams, but I'm making $1,700.
Yeah,
you know,
if that.
Yeah, exactly. It's the streaming services, and we have. Did you see recently where everybody's celebrating themselves on social media?
Yeah,
I've got 10,000 followers. You've got about 50 followers who actually go and actually see you. You got about 10,000 people that clicked on a button that went. And so everything is kind of deceiving now.
If it's got a thumbs up, you click on it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And so we have these numbers that are very deceiving. We have these social media. There's about 1 billion songs a month that are posted on social media sites.
1 billion.
1 billion. Yeah, there's about 1 million a day. Facebook alone's 100,000 an hour that they have videos, they have photographs, they have paintings, they have all content creators and thousands, hundreds of thousands of songwriters. And because everybody can get on their cell phone now and they can just film themselves and they can get on a platform and start getting views. Well, views don't necessarily mean money. We're all, and I'm guilty of this too, we're all a 13-year-old kid with a remote control. What else is on? And that's what we're doing. So a lot of this stuff is misleading, and the myths are kind of that you get something, you write something, you put it on, and immediately the checks start rolling in. And that doesn't happen at all. It's still a long, slow slog. Back in the days, you remember the old movies. I know you're not this old. I'm not either. But back in the 50s, you know, here goes Elvis and Scotty and Bill, and they're heading out in a station wagon. They got Bill's bass fiddle on the top, and they're driving. Yeah. They're driving 500 miles to play the barn dance that night. Well, now we're strapping all that on. We're navigating the millions of miles of the internet, and we're still doing exactly the same thing. My particular deal is showing writers and artists, they're not always the same thing, but a lot of times they are, showing them the realities. You got to get beyond the internet. The internet is a tool, but it's that personality that's going to sell you. It's the work that you do, and that takes constructing very good songs, and it takes presenting them very well. We never know where this stuff goes. Now, there's your internet thing. And we are constantly, there's stuff bombarding us. Well, imagine having a really singer you're excited about, or you are a singer you're excited about, and you put a video up, a TikTok video that you're sitting there chewing on a sandwich, listening to your own music on the back. What does that do? It for one chance to make a bad first impression.
Yeah.
And so what writers are having to deal with today, they need to be conscious of, is you never know where stuff's going up. Be on your best behavior.
And
always.
It really comes down to etiquette.
Etiquette, absolutely.
Etiquette for the writers.
Yes.
And I notice that a lot. They'll pick up the guitar. And, you know, we're a little bit guilty of that here because you haven't met Buddy the Music Dog yet. But Buddy the Music Dog, he's named after Buddy Lee Attractions.
Right. Oh, I love it.
So Buddy the Music Dog will walk in here and you'll see the curtains part and he'll come in that way and go out that way or vice versa. And then he'll lay on the floor and you hear his click-clocking of his toenails.
Okay.
But I'll watch these songwriters who will be doing something and a cat will walk right across in front of them, or a dog or whatever. And you're not necessarily making a great impression, especially that first impression.
That's right.
You really, really have to be professional about it.
All the time.
Yeah.
You never know where a song is going to end up. You never know where someone and this is a thing I know you've seen a lot of times. A career's not a direct line. Somebody knows somebody that knows somebody else that talks about you, and it leads you in all these strange directions. And one of the interesting things about Nashville is your reputation precedes you, and your reputation precedes you. There are people that come in, and they get a lot of attention, but they're just jerks. And that gets around too. You can be the greatest singer in the world, the greatest writer in the world, but if people don't want to work with you, they don't work with you.
Doug and I had a conversation this morning about someone who we absolutely adore, wonderful individual, but talk about burning bridges.
Yeah.
And that, after a while, people just go, I just can't work with that individual because of that. Right. We're going to take a break, get a word in for a couple of our sponsors. That's what puts the food on the table here at the Business Side of Music. And if you're like Mark and myself, we both like to eat. And when we come back, we're going to have some more conversation.
You're listening to the Business Side of Music.
Hi, everyone. I'm Larry Butler, and I want to send you a free digital copy of my new book, The Singer-Songwriter Rulebook, 101 Ways to Help You Improve Your Chances of Success. That's right. Everything you need to know to launch your career as a singer-songwriter, all based on my 40 years in the live performance arena, and believe me, I've seen it all. In my book, you'll find the 10 things you have to deal with before even thinking about becoming a singer-songwriter performer. You'll also learn about the 5 things every singer-songwriter can do this weekend to make their live show better. 5 things I can guarantee that you are not doing already. Plus, there's tips on songwriting and staging, photo and video shoots, publishing, merch, dozens of other topics, all written for people who don't particularly like to read. And again, it's free. Just go to the Business Side of Music website homepage and look for my book cover. Click on it, and a free digital copy of my book will be yours. I'm Larry Butler, and I approve of this message. Thanks.
Since 1963, Korg has been creating new experiences in music and performance. That is what drove the creation of some of Korg's most legendary products, such as the Poly 6, the M1, the Electribe, the Triton, the Minilogue, the Kronos, Wave State, Op6, and most recently the Nautilus, which is what we have here in our studio. Korg is dedicated to creating new, innovative, and uncompromising instruments which maintain the highest quality to inspire music makers, past, present, and future. Visit Korg.com or your favorite Korg dealer to get your hands on one of their products and start creating new music always. Korg, the official sponsor of the Business Side of Music.
You're listening to the Business Side of Music.
Back in the studio here in Nashville, Tennessee, sitting across the podcast table is Marc-Alan Barnette.
We're back.
I think, Thunderthroat, ladies and gentlemen,
yes.
Thunderthroat. I think you and I have as much fun during the breaks as we are on the show.
I believe you're right. Kindred spirits here.
When we talk about, and there's so many things we can cover, and we're going to try and get it into our normal viewing time, podcast time. When we talk about the presentation of the song, and, Mark, I get invited to so many songwriter nights. Hey, come to my songwriter's night. You're the 5th invitation this week.
Yeah.
And I can't keep that momentum. I don't think anybody can.
Right.
Approaching songwriters nights and really, and you said you showed up at the one songwriters night at, 6:15 in the evening, and you didn't go until 1:30 in the morning.
1 in the morning, yeah.
That's really kind of like climbing the ladder and getting there. Where does the patience come in? Where does the professionalism come in? How do you navigate those waters?
Well, a big problem I have is most people don't know how. They're sitting there on the internet and they're clicking around and there's no relationship with the people.
It's instant gratification is what it is. It's
That's
instant gratification.
And this is the opposite of instant gratification. Nashville is designed to put you in a waiting period because they want to see how you're going to act off the stage. How do you behave? How do you treat other people? Are you really somebody that's cool? That's why the community is really very small. There's a huge bunch of people trying to get in, but the actual community, they all kind of know each other. And so you have to always be on your game, number one. You better study what you're doing before you're trying to throw things out there. People are so consumed with getting something out there, they're not taking the time to learn if it should be out there. You also have to listen to other people. When you're presenting something, if it's recorded, you better make sure it's great. If you're sitting there on a writer's night, and I'll tell you what gets me. I've spent an average of 4 nights a week, 5 hours a night for 37 years dealing with writers and artists and going to those exact same things. And I've been on hundreds and hundreds of them, and I have gotten a lot of really nice breaks because I wasn't morose. I wasn't depressing. They'll have overwrite-itis, oversay-itis, overplay-itis. It'll be ballads, long, boring ballads. Girls do ACSS, Angry Chick Singer Syndrome. It's the musical equivalent of the shower scene in Psycho. Guys will do DDSS, Depressed Dude Singer Syndrome, because they're upset because they ran off the girl. They'll be bro country. And so much today, another thing that just kind of whacks me around is so much today is just carbon copies of what's already out there. We've already got it.
As I like to say, we already have the Garth Brooks and the Taylor Swifts of the world.
Yeah.
Be original.
Exactly. Be original within the framework of what you're going for. I quote a little thing about Taylor Swift because I'm asked a lot about Taylor Swift, and because all these girls want to be Taylor Swift. All right, well, number one, you already got something, but Taylor could do something, and I met her when she was 15 with her mother, and I didn't want to work with anybody under 18 years old. I was so smart on that. I also turned down the Garth Brooks cut, so that's another story. But
who was it you turned down?
Garth. Yeah, his manager, Bob Doyle, and asked him,
Oh, another wannabe.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I just do what I do what I say, not what I do. But Taylor had a way of saying things. My daughter is named Taylor, too, and she's about 6 months younger than Taylor. And she wanted her CD. She wanted Taylor's CD for her birthday. I had met her. I didn't think much about it. I started listening to the songs that she did, and she had a way of doing what we always say you got to do as a songwriter. You got to say the same thing, but say it in a different way. She had a song called Our Song. Our song had always traditionally been, our song is when we walk down the aisle. Our song is when our kids graduate. Our song, that was our song. She did it with noises, a slamming door, talking low on the phone so your mama don't know. All of the things that Taylor did was the same thing that we've heard a million times, but did a little twist on everything. And she did it with humor and irony. And this is what people are leaving off. They are so serious about everything. And when I hear, if I hear another 14 or 15-year-old girl talking about how terrible her heart has been broken and she needs to get back on the whiskey tonight, I think I'm going to just explode.
Right.
Age inappropriate. It just sounds unrealistic.
Well, and we went through that. In fact, a story I'll mention here, naming names, because it's pretty much public information. I was working with Leanne Rimes back in the day, and she had this amazing song called How Do I Live?
Yeah. Yes.
How Do I Live Without You?
That's right. Yeah.
And we had pitched it to the movie Con Air.
Yep.
Okay.
I remember it very well.
Big song for Con Air. And it was either the director or the producer, whoever it was, said, well, wait a minute. You got a little 14, 15-year-old girl singing about how do I live without you?
Right.
So they wound up giving the song to Trisha Yearwood.
Yeah.
Well, okay, throw down the gauntlet.
Right.
Let's go.
Right.
And so we started saying, okay, well, we're going to pitch this song to radio. When I left the label a few years later, we had sold 7 million copies of that album.
Right.
Not Trisha. I don't know what Trisha did. Not my world, but I know Leanne Rimes.
Not near that.
Yeah, we sold 7 million copies, but age appropriate, it wasn't.
Right.
But Leanne had the voice to carry it. How do you navigate those swamps? How do you navigate that swampland?
Close your eyes and jump in.
Jump in.
Part of this
And hope you don't get bit in the
that's
process.
Exactly
Yeah.
right. You really have to, when you're working with artists and with writers, you have to get them to do a lot of things. If you're a writer, your job is to write a lot of songs with a lot of people. It gives you a lot of options. If you're a singer, you got to really stretch yourself out, but you've got to understand the framework. Leanne's great example. Extraordinary voice, wise beyond her years, drop dead. Gorgeous. But no matter what you could do, it's going to take her a while to grow into it, you know, and you guys did an amazing job on that girl. She was, but people loved her. They loved her. I remember that era. I remember hearing about her. And so the navigation comes from doing what's right in your heart and having a little common sense in what you're doing and just going through. The best thing about, for me, I'm able to see that I've been here 37 years and I had 10-year rock career. I know where the holes are. I know where you can kind of navigate around them.
It almost sounds like you know where the dead bodies are buried.
Yes, I do. I certainly do. And a lot of it, that is why that the younger artists, it's imperative they pair up with older, more experienced writers to give them. I had a great friend of mine who told me one time, he said, what we're trying to do to get cuts on somebody, particularly these younger artists, we're trying to say what we want to say, but we want to say it in their voice. They have to feel comfortable.
Once again, getting back to the whole Taylor Swift scenario.
Exactly. And they don't have that age yet, but you've got to show them some things, almost like Wizard of Oz, pulling the curtains back. Here are some other things you have to think about. And when you're approaching your music, you can't just preach to your peer group. You have to think about, and another thing that Taylor did and LeAnn Rimes did. Interesting enough, you mentioned that. They appeal to women older than themselves. That's hard to do. Women can be very catty group. If you are just in your peer group, you're going to hit some walls real quickly. But if you can expand that. One woman told me one time that she got caught by her mother. She was telling her daughter, who was probably about 15 years old, she was telling her, that's just you. She's telling her 15-year-old daughter, that's you. The grandmother, her mother said, oh, that was you too. And so that, and that's what we're trying to do as far as songwriters and artists, whatever. We're trying to appeal to as many people as we possibly can.
Right. Networking.
Yes.
Which is a big, and originally that's what I wanted you and I to talk about, but we've gone down so many other paths.
Yeah.
But networking is so important in this town.
Mm-hmm.
I've had songwriters come to Nashville and they'll stay here for 6 months. And at the end of 6 months, they go, well, it didn't work out. I'm going back home.
Yeah.
Well, did you network? Did you spend any time building relationships? No. Well, no. Don't people realize who I am? Yeah, not really.
No.
And it is about building relationships and networking.
Yeah. It's on the inside and on the outside. Networking is making friends. You want everybody that listens to you to feel that they know you. We're looking for two reactions from most audiences. We want them to go, oh my God, that's my life. Or, oh my God, that's my life, and I never thought of it like that.
Yeah.
And so as an artist, as a writer, that's what we're trying to do. If you don't get out and get people to come in and see you, butts in the seats, you ain't going to get hired with anybody. If you're trying to build those relationships inside, you have to do it on two fronts. You have to have the inside people too. They need to want to be on your team, and you have to prove to them you're worth having time. And that's all about one person at a time. You're a politician. Shaking hands and kissing babies.
Or as I say, shaking babies and
shaking
kissing
babies
hands.
and kissing hands. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it is
one
essential.
way or another, you got to do it, though.
Yeah.
It really comes down to that.
You have to. You're in a people business. I get these writers and artists they're so shy and they're so introverted. You're in the most extroverted business that exists.
But I had this conversation with someone in fact, I think I had it with my wife and someone else, is that so many people in the music business, and it's so totally different than the acting business than Hollywood. Actors are naturally extroverts for the most part. Musicians and especially songwriters are very introverted.
That's right. See, I view it as very similar. I view we're acting out a script. We're writing a script. We are trying to get the artists who are our muse, we're trying to get them to put that face on. And it's pretty much the same to me as writing, as acting, excuse me. The open mic, that's a cattle call audition.
Boy, is it ever.
The writer's night is an invited writer's night. That's the callback. And you're constantly trying to audition for the people in the audience. You're auditioning for the producers who might take you on down the road and other writers.
I want to kind of do a sidebar here for
absolutely.
This is probably my biggest bone of contention.
Okay.
To go to a songwriter's night and know that the songwriters are pouring their hearts out. And some of these songs I'm going, holy cow, why isn't this a hit?
Right.
And in the meantime, 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 tables, everybody's just chatting it up and clinking glasses. And how does the songwriter, the aspiring songwriter who's trying to get some recognition, how do you navigate through that?
You got to have a thick skin. You got to make sure, again, you are trying to, what I lovingly refer to this, it's called glow songs.
Okay.
All right. You're sitting up on those stools and you're playing your song. Suddenly you see the glow in the face of people out there. They got their phones and they're all texting on their phones. If they're down like this, you see the glow, you've lost them. If they got their phone up and they're taking video or pictures of you, they're interested in what you're doing. Most people are tuned out. Most people naturally tune out. That's what we have today. We have so much information that comes in. We just go off on our own tangent. Those people are generally so self-absorbed, that's all they're thinking about. We have another name for those, gone, because the majority of people are gone between, it used to be 6 months to 2 years. Now it's 3 months to a year.
Well, and I've always said it's 500 channels of distraction.
That's exactly
That's where
right.
we have to navigate these days.
Yeah.
We're going to get in another word or two for a couple of our sponsors. Right. And when we come back, we're going to have some more very interesting conversation with Marc-Alan Barnette.
You're listening to the business side of music.
As a musician, you have a dream, that vision of what success looks like for you. Though it's not only about the money, money is part of it. Whether you've been extremely successful or you're just striving to maintain a regular cash flow, you need a plan. Money Concepts can help you develop a customized plan to achieve the financial stability and success you want. For over 40 years, Money Concepts has been providing holistic financial planning services to individuals, families, and business owners. As an independent firm, Money Concepts and their associates are committed to always represent the best interest of the client. It's really about a committed, benevolent interest in them personally. This independence, coupled with that committed, benevolent interest, means they represent you, the client, not a product supplier. It's not about selling products, it's about helping you achieve success. To learn how this can benefit you, contact my buddy, John Adams, with Money Concepts at 737-867-9309. That's 737-867-9309. You can also email John at jadams@moneyconcepts.com.
Whether you consider yourself a musician or not, music is all around us, and it affects our everyday lives. Whether it's background music influencing our shopping habits in a store, organ music adding the vibe to a baseball game, or a playlist convincing us to keep going on that last mile of a run. I'm Mindy Peterson, host of the podcast Enhance Life with Music, where we take a holistic look at music's benefits through the lens of science and medicine, entertainment, and business. You can find me and Enhance Life with Music at mpetersonmusic.com/podcast or wherever you get your audio.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Back in the studio here in Nashville, Tennessee, sitting across the podcast table, Marc-Alan Barnette. Thunderthroat. This has been a great conversation. We're going to continue it on for a little bit more. One of the things that I love that you gave me, and hopefully the camera can pick this up, is you don't choose music. Music chooses you. Is that yours?
Yeah.
That's yours.
It's a line in a song called Tables and Chairs. It's kind of become my theme song. And it just popped out of me. I was writing with a guy in California, and I don't know how. It's just, you don't know where these things come from. It just popped into my head. Yeah. And it seems to encapsulate pretty much everything I'm about.
We talk so much about the business changing. Mm-hmm. You know, I came from a time in the record business when we weren't really selling vinyl, but we were selling a lot of cassettes. We were selling a lot of CDs.
Right.
And then Napster and Kazaa and Morpheus came along, and then iTunes came around, and now all of a sudden we're doing 99-cent downloads.
Mm-hmm.
And that eventually went away.
Right.
The changes in the business, I mean, obviously the reality of streaming has affected that songwriter. I don't want to call them content creators because that's such an easy out.
Yeah.
But how do you navigate these minefields in the music business and still make money?
Well, you come from the record business. What was the primary income source and stream for an artist?
Well,
touring and merchandise.
Yeah, touring and merchandise. It
it's
really was.
Exactly the same. The key today is that social media, the product that on the streaming, all of that stuff, that raises awareness.
The big difference back then was you toured to promote your album.
That's right.
To sell.
Right. Yep.
Now you release the album to promote
your tour.
Yeah,
that's
it's just
exactly
the opposite.
right.
Yeah.
And it is. How do you navigate any of this? You hold your nose and dive in as best you can, but you can have some common sense about it. And I broke it down to 4 things. Creation of the song. You create something that's interesting and unique. In order to do that, you have to understand what other people are doing, and you have to not do that. You have to not do exactly what's on the radio, and you have to get some people who are a little more experienced than you. Nashville is 100% co-writing town, so you got to pair up with other people.
Well, I was going to say, and that in itself, you've got to figure out what is the perfect fit, because not all co-writes are productive.
Yeah, most of them are not. So you got to weed through it. We're musical dating. We're working with different people, and you get different types of songs from different people. You go in directions that you didn't think you would go into. And then when you get those songs created, and you do several of them, so you narrow it down, what's the best thing for you. You play those out, and you get feedback from people. You find out what it is. You keep your live presence. I work with a lot of people. You'd mentioned Frankie Ballard. One of the cool things about Frankie, he was killing in Michigan, but as a blues and cover guitar player. And he started coming down here, and we would work together. We'd write songs. He'd go back up there. That guy's playing 5 and 6 nights a week. And then he'd come back to Nashville. And he never left his hometown and home state. He's from Grand Rapids, but he's playing in Pontiac. He's playing all over in Kalamazoo. He's just got this huge natural following. He's a good-looking guy. So he kept doing that. Came down here, kept getting him with some higher and higher status writers, number 1 writers. People started talking about him here in Nashville, and then people started talking about him up there. You got to get past. It's not one thing anymore. It's not, we're just going to do social media. It's not anymore. You got to do everything, and you have to continue doing everything.
When we talk about doing everything, what are some of those other items?
Live performance, getting outside of Nashville. Nashville is a bunch of sellers. Everybody's trying to sell what they're doing. You got to get where your customers are. I believe that the future is in niching, finding small niches. Jason Isbell, all of these people that are kind of under the radar. They might not be on the radio, but they got this huge audience underneath. Lyle Lovett, Jimmy Buffett, these people that have created things that are not, the radio's part of it, but they're entities unto themselves.
And maybe haven't seen a radio single, if ever, in maybe 20 years.
That's right.
Or 30 years.
Yeah. So you build things in these concentric circles. You have your hometown. I'm from Birmingham, and I used to go back to Birmingham all the time. Then you go down to Tuscaloosa. Then you go all of these things. You kind of expand that while being in town, creating your product. And so you're constantly doing this 2 things. Now, that's as an artist. As a writer, you're trying to get on the people that are doing both of those things. So you have to act as if you'll never get a record or publishing deal and do everything yourself till somebody takes over the job. And that's the navigation. And you'll run off track sometimes.
We talked about streaming realities because obviously that compensation isn't what it used to be. Another thing I think is measuring success in today's world. Mm-hmm. What do you base that success factor or that success quotient? And I'm using parentheses here, or quotation marks maybe I should say. How do you measure what success is?
You measure it every gig, every time you play, are there more people than the last time that you played? Do they follow you on social media? Did they personally try to get to your product? Did they follow you on their website? Did they tell their friends about you? If you could get 5,000 people to pay you $25 to $50 a year, you got a pretty good career.
Yeah, you don't need a record deal at that point.
No, you don't. And that's it. How many people are you getting to pay you to be you? Not just with their money, but also their attention, their own. And again, I find some interesting things between our relationships. In your career as in record labels, your reputation was on everybody you were involved with. Your higher ups had to make sure that you were delivering the goods to the label
every single day.
That's exactly right. And if you brought in somebody that just stiffed, what happens? You either get fired or you get demoted.
Right.
That's the same thing that we go through.
Or both at the same time.
Yeah, that's right. And that's what happens with us. If you're not sitting and there are people out there seeing you live, and I'm a real big guy about live. I mean, I've had record company people say, well, we don't really equate the live performance with the recording. I'm going, what the hell are you even talking about? The live recording is one part. The live is the recording is one part. The live is another. You got to get out and press the flesh and actually meet people. And it's more important today because you can get lost in the internet so easily.
Well, and I think the other thing is you have to be of the mindset that you have to entertain.
That's right.
You're not just getting up there and singing.
Lord.
You know, I love some wonderful guys who, well, Don Williams was a perfect example.
I did too, yeah.
The guy could get up there and he could sing, but he couldn't entertain to save his life.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It was a different era.
Yeah.
Is a different era. You could get away with things in that era, you know. But even with that, you know, Don was kind of slow. But Lord, I hope this day is good. You know, I mean, he had really cool little style about him. Today we're in more fast pace. Today we are involved in a shorter attention span, and so it is absolutely incumbent upon us to entertain and to make people feel like this is somebody I want to spend some time with.
Right. I think that also we've got to understand that the business is not done evolving. It's not done changing at all. And we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. That's kind of a scary world in itself.
It's a scary world. We got AI coming right up our throat. You know what? You can't do anything about that. You've got to be who you are, but you've got to be the best you that you can be. And that takes having some input from other people. It takes building teams. It takes building character in yourself. You know, one of the things that younger people have got to realize, it's not what you can do. It's not about what people can do for you. It's what you can do for other people.
Thank you very much. I think that is such a key factor that we constantly overlook. I always tell people when they first come to Nashville, don't ask what somebody can do to enhance your career.
That's right.
You ask them what you can do, and they go, "Oh, I just moved here. I don't have anything to." Yeah, you do. You have something to offer.
Yeah.
If it's nothing else, it's maybe critiquing a song or something, sharing some stage presence. You know, that choreography, anything.
Being someone that other people are happy to be around.
Right.
You know, there are people that I've known, and I know you've known this too. We've both gone through this town for many years, and there are so many people. There are songs, there are people, there are companies that you go, how in the world can that miss? This is great, and it does. You know, and the songs like The Gambler. The Gambler was cut 10 times before it made it to Kenny Rogers.
Right.
It was passed on by everybody. And so you got to understand that kind of thing, you're going to get passed on. You just got to be something that people want to be around.
You have to persevere.
Yeah.
And remember what I said, that, I came to Nashville or L.A. or New York or Austin or London, wherever it is, and I gave it 6 months and nothing happened. Yeah.
I've heard that so many times it makes me laugh.
I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
Keep trying.
Right.
Keep persevering.
Keep doing what you're doing.
You know, the first time I came to Nashville, 1987.
Okay.
And I said, I'm going to live here someday.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea what I was going to do.
Right.
I didn't have a concept.
Right.
10 years later, I was here.
And it's a 10 years town.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. But it was a matter of, I set my sights, I set my goals, I set my direction.
Right.
And I knew what it would take to get there. And some of it I didn't know, but for the most part, I knew, okay, you're going to have to get in a U-Haul truck and a station wagon and, drive across country. But once you get here, my point is, you don't go after 6 months ago, well, I gave it the old college try, I'm going back home.
Can I ask you a question?
Oh, absolutely.
In that 10 years from when you first kind of got experienced from here and decided that's what you wanted to do, what were the things you were doing in between before you got that? Did you make trips back here or did you just
absolutely.
Okay, there you go.
In fact, I would find people that I could network with because before my record label days, I was a tour manager.
Right.
So, hey, do you know any acts that are looking for a road manager? Well, they're always looking for road managers, Road managers, hate to say this, and to my fellow road managers, sometimes we're a dime a dozen.
That's right.
And we get burned out or we move on to another gig or we retire.
You don't want to be on the road.
Yeah. And so that was a nice building block for me. And I think the other thing was get back to what we talked about originally, networking. I'm old school, and excuse me, this younger generation that gets QR codes on their phone and say, here's my contact information.
Right.
Here's my business card. You won't lose this in your phone.
Right.
You'll know how to find me when you go through your pocket.
Yeah.
We've got some of these things that we've done for 30, 40, 50 years still work. Let's not change it.
Yep. Yeah. That's right. The business card, so many of the times, is what you put on your refrigerator.
Yeah.
You go to the refrigerator. There it is. This is somebody you need to talk to. And what I'm impressed when people go out of their way to want to sit down and ask what I've been doing, because they see something in me. Most of the people that I meet are through my performing. They see me on stage, and I'm kind of a teacher and a mentor in town, and they hear about me. And they sit down, and when they sit down and ask some questions about what I've done, and I'm more interested in listening to them. And I'm also hearing in what they say. I'm trying to read between the lines. Where do you come from? What are you all about? These conversations are what it is. And even if you're a singer, we're having a musical conversation. The difference. You know what a verse, a chorus. The difference of the verse and chorus.
Between a verse and a chorus.
Yeah.
What?
I know. Well, the verse is your chance to say what you want to say. The chorus is the audience's chance to sing along.
There you go.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So that's the yin and yang. It's the back and forth, and that's what we're trying to do.
Mark, how can people find you, find your music, all that good stuff? Get one of these really cool bumper stickers.
It's MarcAlanBarnette.com, MarcAlanBarnette.com. But if you do a Google search or DuckDuckGo and go Marc-Alan Barnette Nashville, it'll pop up there. I've got, and I would say this to anybody who is thinking about either moving here or making trips. I have a series of videos either on my website or on YouTube. I find stuff on YouTube I didn't even realize that somebody did one of my workshops. But you go to Marc-Alan Barnette, and a ton of things will come up.
So you're doing workshops too?
I do workshops. I do. My main thing is I started doing the workshops back in 2000. I was asked by various NSAI groups, Nashville Songwriters Association in Nashville, about 110 chapter workshops. I've been a member of NSAI since the beginning. I've been in the pro division. I've written with a lot of pro people. People started asking me to come out at the workshop. I did that. And then I would find so many people say, I want to come to Nashville, but I don't know what to do. And so I started what I call my songwriter tour, which is through the past, the present, the future of the participant. And I'll listen to their songs, and I'll give them direction. And sometimes over 3,000 times I physically write songs with them, which will give them, it's teaching a person to fish, showing them the principles and the little tips that pro writers use to get a song from beginning to finish very quickly and be very accurate on it. So all of this stuff is on my website, and it's what I do. Best thing for me, I just enjoy sitting and hanging out with people and talking, such as yourself. You've been a great time. This is great, man. I appreciate it so much.
Here's a shout out to our loyal listeners. Without you, we wouldn't be one of the most listened to music industry interview podcasts in the world, including achieving #1 status in many countries around the world, according to Apple Podcasts. If you enjoy our show, please check out our Facebook page at the Business Side of Music Podcast. Please, please, please don't forget to subscribe, and definitely hit that thumbs up like button that Mark and I talked about. While you're at it, go to our page on YouTube and click on the Business Side of Music Podcast to subscribe. You can check out our webcasts on there and get to see me and our guests, such as Marc-Alan Barnette, who's sitting across from me here in the studio, along with, as I mentioned, Buddy the Music Dog, who occasionally makes an entrance, and he did.
He did.
But
he came in to say hey.
Yeah, but he left quickly.
And of course.
Last but not least, check out and follow us on Twitter. I guess we call it X these days, at Biz Music Podcast. Mark, and we're going to get you back in.
I'd love to do it.
You're not
really
off the hook yet, buddy.
All right, I'm ready.
The Business Side of Music is the creation of Tom Sabella and Tracy Snow and is produced by Bob Bender. The Business Side of Music is recorded at Music Dog Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. Production sound designed by Keith Stark. Voiceover and promo by Lisa Busan.